Welcome to the Future Chi Podcast.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are back at it. If you were with us for our last session, you'll remember we spent a lot of time looking in the mirror.
Right.
Or, more accurately, sticking our tongues out at the mirror until it got pretty awkward.
It did get a little awkward, yeah. But we broke down the science behind tongue diagnosis.
Exactly, which we kind of call the body's check engine light. The data on that was honestly just shocking. Machine learning algorithms looking at tongue images and predicting diabetes with, what was it, something like 98% accuracy?
It was off the charts. But that was all about vision.
Right. It was all about what the machine can see. It's a snapshot in time.
Exactly. It's a visual inspection of the surface to understand what's happening internally. It's powerful for sure, but it's static.
But today we are moving from the surface of the flow. We're going from that check engine light to, I guess, checking the oil pressure.
That's a great analogy.
So today we're asking a much more uncomfortable question. The machine can see, sure. We've established that. But can it feel?
And that really is the next frontier, isn't it? We're talking about the digitization of touch.
The digitization of touch.
Specifically, we're exploring pulse diagnosis, or sigmography, if you want the technical term.
Figmography. That sounds like something a villain would do in a James Bond movie.
It does sound pretty intense, but it's really just the study of the pulse wave.
Okay. And before we go any further, we absolutely have to get our terms straight.
Yes.
Because we're going to be throwing around some concepts from traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. And the big one, the one that usually makes scientists, roll their eyes, is qi.
Right. Spelled Q-I.
But pronounced chi.
Exactly. It rhymes with tree. Like cheese, but without the say.
Chi, got it. And, usually when you hear that word, you think of, like, energy fields or something out of a martial arts movie.
Right. It has that mystical vibe to it.
But today, we're going to see if we can teach a robot to actually feel that chi flowing through a person's wrist.
It sounds like pure science fiction.
It really does. But then you look at this stack of research you sent over, articles on fluid dynamics, haptic sensors, piezoelectric films, and you realize it's actually becoming science fact.
It is. And what's so fascinating here, what really pulled me in, is the clash of worldviews that's required to even make this work.
Yes.
In the source materials we're looking at, this isn't just presented as, dry data. It's almost set up like a play, like a drama with a whole cast of characters representing these different approaches.
I love that part of the note that really frames the whole conflict, because otherwise this gets so dense so fast. So let's introduce the cast of this story before we dive into the tech. It just helps to visualize who's arguing in the room.
Good idea.
First up, we have the old master, a Dr. Zang.
Right. So Dr. Zang represents the art. You have to picture a man with 50, maybe more, years of experience just palpating wrists.
Palpating. Just means feeling, right?
Yeah, just feeling. He's probably touched the wrists of, 100,000 people.
Wow.
And he claims he can feel things that, they seem impossible to a modern doctor. He talks about feeling sadness, pregnancy, weeks before a test can pick it up, even ghosts in the system.
Ghosts. Okay, see, that's where you lose me a little.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the biology, but when we start talking about feeling ghosts in the blood,
I get it.
I feel like we've left the science lab and walked onto a movie set.
And that's a totally valid reaction, but stick with it, because Dr. Zhang's whole position is that the pulse is a living interaction. It's not just a data stream. He believes there's a spirit, a consciousness in the flow.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I will suspend my disbelief for now. Then, in the completely opposite corner, basically yelling at Dr. Zhang, we have the AI architect.
Yep.
The notes call him Neo.
Neo. He's the futurist. He is obsessed with waveforms, piezoelectric sensors, math. For him, the pulse is just hydraulic data. That's it.
Pipes and pumps.
The pipes and pumps. The heart is a pump. The arteries are pipes. If you can measure the wave, you know the truth. He thinks Dr. Zang is, frankly, hallucinating.
We have the person in the middle. The bridge. Dr. Sarah.
The integrative MD. And she's crucial because she speaks both languages. She's interested in hemodynamics.
Which is a fancy way of saying how blood moves physically, right?
Exactly. How it flows. And she's also looking at things like arterial stiffness. She's the one trying to translate Dr. Zhang's poetry into Neo's math.
And finally, there's the intern, Alex.
Oh, poor Alex.
I think Alex is me. Or maybe Alex is you, the listener. The nervous beginner.
Alex represents the sheer difficulty of this skill, just standing there, sweating, trying to find the pulse positions.
And worrying that if you move your finger just 1 millimeter, you're going to get the whole diagnosis wrong.
And secretly, Alex is worried that a robot is about to make their entire profession obsolete.
So that's our mission today, really. We're going to explore this massive clash between, ancient intuition and cold, hard data processing.
And we're going to see if an AI can actually replicate the touch of a master doctor.
And what that means for the future of medicine.
It's a big one.
So let's get into the basics. Pulse reading 101. Because I think for most of us, when we go to the doctor, the pulse is just a number, beats per minute, 72, 80, done.
Right.
If it's beating, I'm alive. If it's not, you would probably call an ambulance.
That's the modern Western view, pretty much. It's purely about rate and rhythm. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it regular? That's about as deep as it goes for a routine checkup.
But in the source material, there's this incredible section, this roundtable dialogue, where Neo, the AI guy, just says, stop calling it pulse reading. It's fluid dynamics. The heart is a pump. The arteries are pipes. And it seems logical.
It is perfectly logical from a purely mechanical perspective, but Dr. Zang, the master, he just completely explodes at that idea.
He does. His response is just, it is not a pipe. It is a river.
And that analogy is everything. You have to stop thinking about a garden hose for a second and actually picture a river. What's the real difference?
Well, a pipe is. It's rigid. It's predictable. The water just goes through it. A river changes. It has a life of its own.
A river has a mood.
A mood?
Think about it. Stand by a river. Sometimes it's, rushing and turbulent. It's crashing against the banks.
Yeah.
Other times it's sluggish and muddy, barely moving at all. Sometimes it's just a thin little trickle, barely getting over the rocks. The water itself is the same. It's all H2O. But the quality of the flow, the feeling of it, changes completely.
Okay, I see that. So the mood of the river.
That is what pulse diagnosis is looking for. It's not just about how fast the water is moving, but the very texture of that movement. Is the river angry? Is it tired? Is it blocked by a fallen log?
Which is where these poetic terms come from. Dr. Zang talks about a pulse being slippery, like pearls rolling in a basin.
Or wiry, like a taut violin string. And to feel those nuances, you can't just slap a blood pressure cuff on the arm that squeezes until your hand goes numb.
You have to play the instrument.
Which brings us to the keyboard, the actual anatomy of the wrist. This is where the intern, Alex, was struggling so much.
I have to admit, I tried this on my own wrist while reading the notes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I couldn't feel half of what they were talking about. It is so much harder than it looks.
It's incredibly precise. In TCM, there are 3 distinct positions on each wrist, right next to each other, and each one corresponds to a different organ system.
And the pronunciation here is really important, right? Because I was reading them as kun and chai and...
Yeah, let's clean that up, because we'll be using them a lot. So the first one, closest to the wrist crease, is kun. But it's pronounced soon.
Soon, like I'll see soon.
Exactly. Then the one in the middle is guan, pronounced guan.
Guan.
To find it, you have to sort of jump over that little bony bump on your wrist, the styloid process.
Right, I feel that. Okay, so soon, then guan.
And the third position is qi, just like the energy. Position is pronounced chur.
Soon, guan, chur. So what do they all mean?
Well, broadly, the soon position reflects the heart and the lung, everything happening in the upper part of your torso, the chest.
Makes sense.
The guan position in the middle, that reflects the liver and spleen, so digestion, filtration, the middle section.
And the last one.
And the chur position, the one furthest up the arm, reflects the kidney, your foundational energy, your battery pack, so to speak.
And the whole problem Alex, the intern, was having is that if you slide your finger just 1 millimeter, you've gone from listening to the heart to listening to the liver.
Essentially, yes. I mean, the radial artery is one continuous tube, obviously. But the harmonics of the wave, the vibrations, they change as the wave travels down that very short distance. It's like pressing different frets on a guitar string. The string is the same, but the note changes completely.
That seems like a massive, massive margin for error. If I have a short arm or a long arm or bigger bones, how does the doctor know exactly where to press?
And that's the art. That's the 50 years of experience. A human doctor feels the landscape, they feel the bone, they feel the tendon, and they slide their fingers into the groove. They adjust.
But a robot can't do that.
A robot is a dumb machine. You tell it, go to coordinates XYZ, and if the patient's anatomy is just slightly different, the robot is now pressing on a tendon,
Or it's diagnosing your liver when it should be looking at your lung.
Which is exactly what Neo, the AI guy, calls the positioning paradox.
The positioning paradox.
Right, because every single human wrist is different. If a robot just clamps down at some preset coordinate, it might miss the artery entirely. Or, just as bad, it might press too hard and just obliterate the very signal it's trying to read.
But it's not just where you press along the length of the arm. It's also how hard you press down. This is the part that really made me realize how three-dimensional this whole thing is.
The 3 depths, yes. This is where it goes from being a 2D line to a 3D map. A simple heart rate monitor, like on your watch, just sits on the skin.
Right?
But a proper pulse diagnosis requires you to plunge into the river, so to speak.
So we have the superficial level first.
Right, just touching the skin very lightly. That tells you about external conditions, like a cold or the flu attacking the body's surface. Think of it as just checking the surface of the water for ripples.
Okay. Then you press a little harder to the middle level.
Now you're pressing into the muscle. That level tells you about the blood and your digestion. You're feeling the main flow of the river now.
And then all the way down. The deep level.
All the way down until you're pinning the artery against the radius bone. That tells you about the state of the internal organs and the deep reserves of the body. So you've got 3 positions times 3 depths. You're navigating a 9-point grid on the artery.
A 3D map. So how on earth do they solve this with a robot? How do you teach a metal hand to feel that kind of nuance?
They use something called tactile sensor arrays. Imagine a robotic fingertip that's covered in tiny sensors, and it has 6-axis freedom of movement. It doesn't just press down, it hunts.
It hunts. What do you mean?
It scans the area. The robot makes initial contact with the wrist. It measures the feedback. It slides a millimeter to the left, presses a tiny bit harder, slides to the right. It actively searches for the strongest signal, dynamically adjusting its pressure and position, just like Dr. Zang would.
That is wild. It's like the robot is literally fumbling around trying to find a pulse, just like a person would.
It's biomimicry. It has to learn how to feel before it can even begin to learn how to diagnose.
Okay, so let's say the robot finds the spot. It's pressing down with the right pressure. Now comes the really interesting part, the translation. This is what I found so helpful in the source material, this idea of a translation dictionary. Because Dr. Zang uses these beautiful poetic terms, and Dr. Sarah, the scientist, she translates them directly into physics.
This is where we bridge that enormous gap. Because, poetry doesn't work in computer code. So let's take the Wiry pulse as the first example.
The Wiry pulse. Okay. Dr. Zang says it feels like a violin string that's been pulled way too tight. It just hits your finger with this sharp tension. And he associates that feeling with stress, pain, or the liver.
Now, to a modern cardiologist like Dr. Sarah, the word stress sounds vague.
Right. I'm stressed. Okay, what do we do with that?
But physically, what is actually happening in the body? When you're stressed, your sympathetic nervous system fires up. Your fight or flight response.
Adrenaline kicks in. Your heart pounds.
Right. And what does all that adrenaline do to the pipe, to the artery? It constricts it. The smooth muscle in the arterial wall physically tightens up.
So the pipe literally gets harder.
Exactly. In Western medicine, we would call this high arterial stiffness or high peripheral resistance. The analogy I like is a garden hose. If you turn the water on full blast and then you kink the hose or squeeze it really tight in your hand, what happens?
The hose gets rock hard. It vibrates.
It vibrates with tension. That is the wiry feeling. And the notes say this feeling correlates over 90% of the time with clinical hypertension.
Wow.
So when Dr. Zang feels a wiry pulse and Dr. Sarah measures high arterial stiffness with her instruments, they're describing the exact same hydraulic event.
Just with different vocabularies.
One is using the language of music and tension. The other is using the language of physics. But the diagnosis is identical. This person is under pressure and their blood vessels are screaming about it.
That is a huge aha moment for me. It's not some kind of magic. It's just a different, maybe more intuitive vocabulary for physiology.
Precisely. It's embodied knowledge.
Now, let's talk about the slippery pulse. This is the one that really got me. Dr. Zhang's claim that he can feel a second life flowing weeks before baby bump even shows.
The pearls rolling in a basin.
Yeah. It sounds so incredibly abstract. How can blood flow possibly feel like pearls?
If a doctor told me my blood felt like jewelry, I think I'd probably ask for a second opinion.
Me too. But let's look at the physics again. What happens when a woman becomes pregnant? Her blood volume increases dramatically. Over the 9 months, it can go up by 40 or even 50%.
So there's just more fluid in the river.
A lot more fluid, and that changes the hemodynamics, the flow, right from the very beginning. And this is where Neo, our AI architect, breaks it down. The AI doesn't see pearls. It sees a double peak waveform. A double peak, what does that mean?
Well, a normal pulse wave goes thump, thump. It's a single peak on the graph. But with the increased blood volume and the changes in vascular resistance during pregnancy, the wave has a little reverberation, a second little bounce. So it's more like thump bump, thump bump.
And that tiny second bump, that's what feels like a little pearl rolling past your finger.
That is exactly the theory. It creates this smooth, rolling sensation against the tactile sensor or against a very sensitive fingertip.
The data on this must be good.
It's astounding. The source material cites a study where deep learning algorithms could detect pregnancy with 84% accuracy just by analyzing the pulse waveform.
That is mind-blowing. No P-stick, no ultrasound, just listening to the wrist.
It's just math. But it's math that validates the so-called magic. The slippery pulse is a real, measurable, physical phenomenon. It's a specific hydraulic signature.
I'm really starting to think Dr. Zang knows his physics better than the physicists do.
Or at least he knows the feeling of the physics in a way they don't.
Okay, so then there are the scary ones, the choppy pulse.
Choppy is described as feeling like a knife scraping against a piece of bamboo. It's rough. It's uneven. In TCM, this points to something called blood stasis, the idea that the blood just isn't flowing smoothly.
That sounds painful just hearing the description.
It implies there's a blockage somewhere. And the AI sees this as high variance in peak intervals and rough texture. It's often used as a marker to help detect coronary heart disease.
Because the flow is turbulent. The vessels are blocked or damaged.
The river is full of rocks, exactly.
And what about the opposite? The fine or thready pulse.
That one feels like a very thin thread under your finger. It's weak, it's barely there. That's a sign of deficiency. The body doesn't have enough resources.
And in physics terms.
It's low amplitude and low pulse wave velocity. The system just doesn't have enough pressure, enough to fill the vessel properly.
It's fascinating how these ancient terms, which sound so mystical and strange, are actually incredibly precise descriptors of fluid dynamics.
They had to be. They didn't have MRI machines. They didn't have advanced blood tests. They had their fingers and their brains. So they developed this incredibly nuanced classification system that was, in essence, the world's first big data set of human health.
Which brings us perfectly to our next character. A guy who lived 500 years ago, but who the notes call the original data scientist.
Shizhen.
Shizhen.
He's a legend in Chinese medicine. He wrote a famous text, the Binhu Mai Su, which basically translates to Pulse Studies of the Lakeside.
And in the 16th century, he did exactly what machine learning engineers are doing today. He created a classification system.
A taxonomy, yeah. He broke the seemingly infinite variety of human pulses down into 27 discrete labels or classes.
Pattern recognition.
It's pure pattern recognition. He realized that while every pulse is unique, they fall into recognizable categories. We've just discussed a few, wiry, slippery, choppy, but he went so much deeper.
Like floating versus sinking.
This is a classic logic gate in his system. A floating pulse is one you feel right at the surface with a very light touch. He described it as wood on water.
What does that mean clinically?
It means the disease is external. A cold, a wind attack, the flu. Your body is pushing its defensive energy, its chi, to the surface to fight off the invader.
And sinking. The opposite.
The complete opposite. You can only feel it when you press all the way down to the bone. That means the disease is internal. The organs are struggling. The body's energy has retreated to the core to defend the vital systems.
And then there are the rhythmic ones, which I found so interesting. The difference between a knotted pulse and an intermittent one.
This distinction is just brilliant. On the surface, they both sound the same. They're regular beats, but a knotted pulse stops at irregular intervals. It's chaotic. It might go beat, beat, stop, then beat, beat, stop, then beat, stop. There's no pattern to the pause.
And what does that signify?
Shizhen associated that with stagnation, with anxiety, with some kind of blockage. The heart is tripping over itself because the flow of qi and blood is obstructed.
Okay, so what's an intermittent pulse then?
An intermittent pulse stops at regular intervals. It's predictable. Beat, beat, stop, beat, beat, stop. Like a clock that's missing a tick every 3 seconds.
That sounds more serious.
It's considered much more serious. It suggests something systematic is failing, organ failure, severe exhaustion. The engine itself is misfiring on a regular schedule.
And the AI must be amazing at this.
Oh, AI is incredible at rhythm analysis. It can distinguish a nodded from an intermittent pulse far more accurately and quickly than a human can. It's just counting the milliseconds between the peaks. It's pure math.
But here's where it gets really, really tricky for the AI. This was the part of the research that honestly made me put the papers down and just stare at the wall for a second.
Seasonal algorithm.
Yes. This just breaks every rule of modern standardized medicine.
It absolutely does. Standard medicine loves a baseline. A blood pressure of 120/80 is considered normal in January, and it's considered normal in July. The context doesn't matter.
But Shizhen, our data scientist from the 1500s, says, no, that's wrong.
Completely wrong, in his view. He treats the human body as part of the natural world, part of the solar system. Think about what happens in spring. What does a tree do in the spring?
Wakes up, it starts pushing sap upwards. It grows new bugs, new leaves.
Exactly. There is an upward, expansive, almost explosive tension in nature, and his view is that human beings are not separate from that physics. In the spring, your liver chew, which is associated with the wood element, is also pushing upward. So your pulse should feel a little bit tight. It should feel a little bit wiry.
So if I go to Dr. Zang in April, and my pulse feels like a tight violin string.
He nods and says, good, you are in harmony with the season. He'd say you're healthy.
And here is the absolute kicker for the AI developers. If I have that exact same pulse in November,
then you are sick. In autumn, the energy of nature is sinking downwards, the leaves are falling, everything is going dormant for winter. If your energy is still pushing upwards, if you're wiry in the fall, you are fighting the season. You're out of balance.
So this is a complete nightmare for the algorithm, isn't it?
It's what you might call a context catastrophe. If you train your AI only on a massive data set of pulse waveforms without also feeding it the calendar date, the local weather, maybe even the barometric pressure,
it's going to misdiagnose millions of healthy people.
It will see a healthy person in spring and diagnose them as being pathologically stressed.
It would be like a weather app predicting snow in July because it forgot to check what month it is.
That's a perfect analogy. The algorithm needs context. A pulse isn't just a signal in a vacuum. It's a signal that exists within a season, within a specific body, at a specific time of day.
So let's dive a bit deeper into the how. How does the machine actually listen to all this? Because we've been talking about feeling, but the technical specs in the notes mention something called FFT, or fast Fourier transform. And I'll be honest, whenever I see the word Fourier, my brain just kind of shuts down.
It sounds super intimidating, I know, but the concept is actually pretty simple. Think of a prism.
A prism, like the Pink Floyd album cover.
Exactly like that. You shine a single beam of white light into a prism, and what comes out the other side?
A rainbow.
A rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, blue, and so on. The white light wasn't just one thing. It was actually a mix of all those different colors, all those different frequencies of light stacked together.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
FFT is basically a mathematical prism for sound or vibration. A pulse wave, when you graph it, looks like one big bump. But it's actually made of many smaller vibrations all stacked on top of each other. FFT is the tool that breaks that single white light pulse into its rainbow of constituent frequencies, which we call harmonics.
So you're saying it breaks a single beat down into music notes?
That is a fantastic way to think about it. It really is. When you play a C major chord on a piano, you hear one unified sound. But we know it's actually made of 3 separate notes, a C, an E, and a G. The pulse is the same. It's a chord.
So what are the notes in the pulse chord?
Well, the most important one is the first harmonic, which we can call C1. That's the fundamental frequency. That's the bass note.
The bass.
In the research, the C1 harmonic correlates to the liver chi, or just the brute force of the heart's ejection. It's the big thump.
Okay, so that's the baseline. What else is in there?
Then you have the second harmonic, C2. That's the melody. This higher frequency correlates to the kidney and spleen system, and physically, it's actually the reflection of the initial wave bouncing back from your smaller arteries in the periphery. It's the echo.
The echo. Okay, so let's connect this back. When Dr. Zang says a pulse is wiry, what is happening to the music? What does the machine hear?
Okay, so think of your artery as an echo chamber, like a canyon. When your heart beats, it shouts into the canyon. That's the C1, the bass note. If the walls of the canyon, your arteries are soft and flexible, you get a nice, clear echo back. That's the C2 harmonic. The melody is clear and present.
And if the pulse is wiry, if you're stressed?
If the walls of the canyon are rock hard and rigid, that echo gets completely distorted. It comes back way too fast and it crashes into the original shout, canceling it out. A wiry pulse, that high arterial stiffness, it physically suppresses the C2 harmonic. The melody gets drowned out.
Whoa.
So all the machine hears and all Dr. Zang feels is the pounding bass. Just the C1. Just the tension.
That is such a vivid image. Stress literally kills the melody of your blood flow.
It absolutely does. From a harmonic perspective, it leaves you with just the tension, just the bass line.
And the robots are actually using this to diagnose.
Yes. This is the core of it. They aren't just counting beats per minute. They are analyzing the ratio of the bass to the melody. If that C2 melody is weak or missing, they flag it as high arterial stiffness, or, in TCM terms, liver yang rising.
It's just incredible that we can quantify something that sounds so poetic. But we have to talk about the dirty reality. Because in the lab, with perfect conditions, this all works great. But in the clinic,
real life is always messy.
the notes bring up this scenario of the discordant diagnosis, the man versus machine conflict. And I want to push back on this a little bit because my initial reaction was to side with the machine.
Oh, okay, go for
The
it.
scenario is this. A patient comes in and they feel terrible. They're exhausted, dizzy, they just feel weak or empty. Dr. Zang feels their pulse and says, this is severe key deficiency. Your pulse is hollow, it's empty.
Right, a classic diagnosis.
But then they put the standard blood pressure cuff on the patient, and the machine reads 120/80. Perfectly normal. So my question is, why are we siding with Dr. Zang here? 120/80 is an objective fact. Empty is a subjective feeling. Isn't the machine the one telling the actual truth?
It depends entirely on what truth you're looking for. The machine is telling you the truth about quantity. Is the pipe full of fluid? Yes. The hydrostatic pressure inside the vessel is normal.
Okay, so the pipe is full. That sounds good.
But Dr. Zang is telling you the truth about capability. Imagine a brand new balloon. You can fill that balloon with water until it's, say, the size of a grapefruit. It feels tight, strong, resilient.
Sure.
Now imagine a second balloon. This one is old, the rubber is worn out, it's thin, it's lost all its elasticity. You can also fill that balloon to the size of a grapefruit.
Visually, from a distance, they might look the same.
And the pressure inside might even measure the same. But touch them, what's the difference? One feels tight and bouncy, the other one feels...
Flabby. Weak. Like it could pop any second.
That is the empty pulse. The machine only sees the dimension. It's the size of a grapefruit. The master feels the cheap, worn-out rubber. The vessel wall has no tone, no vitality.
So the machine says normal, but the patient feels like that flabby balloon.
Exactly. And if you treat that patient as if they are strong and healthy just because their blood pressure number looks good, you might really harm them, or at the very least, you won't help them get better. This is where the machine is technically right, but clinically, profoundly wrong. It's incomplete.
Then there's the classic problem of the white coat effect.
Oh, a huge issue for any kind of measurement. You walk into a doctor's office, you get nervous, your heart rate spikes, your pulse immediately gets tight or wiry just because you're anxious about being judged or getting bad news.
And humans are pretty good at dealing with this, right? A good doctor will talk to you for a minute, calm you down.
A good doctor does. They'll hold your wrist, make small talk, and literally feel the pulse settle down as you relax. They can filter out the noise. A sensor just records the raw data. If it doesn't have extremely advanced noise filtering to say, hold on, that initial spike was just anxiety, it might diagnose you with chronic hypertension when you're just nervous.
And then there are the freaks of nature. The anatomical anomalies.
The radialis posterior.
I had no idea this was even a thing. Some people have their main radial artery on the back of their wrist.
It's rare, but it happens. Human anatomy has variations. A human doctor puts their fingers on the front of the wrist, feels nothing, and their brain immediately goes, huh, that's weird, let me check the back. They adapt in less than a second.
And the robot.
The robot is programmed to check the front. It feels nothing. It might try hunting around for a bit, but if it can't find it, it errors out. Or worse, it concludes the patient has no pulse.
Patient has no pulse. Initiate code blue. Meanwhile, the person is just sitting there perfectly fine, but with a weirdly placed artery.
Exactly. This is why the human in the loop is still so critically important. Robots are brilliant at the what, at the known patterns, but they still struggle with the weird.
But the tech is obviously getting better. And this leads us to the future. Because right now, most of us, or at least many of us, are walking around with a pulse sensor on our wrist.
Yeah.
An Apple Watch, a Fitbit, whatever.
But there is a massive fundamental gap there.
The Apple Watch gap. Explain this to me. Why is my very expensive smartwatch so dumb compared to Dr. Zang's fingertips.
Your smartwatch uses something called PPG photoplethysmography.
Photoplethys, what?
PPG. Basically, it shines a green light into your skin, and a sensor measures how much of that light is absorbed by the blood pulsing through your capillaries. It's an optical measurement. It's looking at the color change as blood flows.
So it's seeing, not feeling.
You nailed it. It is seeing, not feeling. Because of that, it can tell you the rate, how fast the beats are, and it can tell you the rhythm. Is it steady or irregular? But it absolutely cannot tell you the quality.
But can't tell if the pulse is wiry or slippery.
Not at all. Because it isn't applying any pressure. It's not squeezing the river to feel the tension in the banks. It's just watching the water level rise and fall from a distance.
It's missing the texture.
It's missing the texture entirely. It's missing that whole 3D map we talked about.
But the source material talks about some incredible future tech that could solve this, like remote squeezing.
This is where it starts to get really interesting. Imagine a wristband that doesn't just sit there shining a light. It has a small actuator, a little bladder or motor, that can physically squeeze your wrist on command.
So I'm on a Zoom call with my doctor in another city.
And she says, okay, let me feel your pulse. She clicks a button, and your wristband at home inflates or presses a small probe down onto your artery. It records the pressure feedback, the pushback of your blood, and sends that rich, tactile texture data back to her in real time.
That's very cool. But the next one is straight out of a William Gibson novel, The Haptic Glove.
This is my favorite part of all the research. It's so conceptually amazing.
Set the scene for us.
Okay, imagine you have a world-renowned specialist, the best cardiologist on the planet, and she's in London. And you have a pregnant patient in, say, Tokyo, who is having some rare complications.
They can't fly to see each other. It's impossible.
No need. The patient in Tokyo wears a sophisticated sensor wristband, and the doctor in London puts on a haptic feedback glove.
And then?
The raw tactile data from the Tokyo wristband is transmitted instantly over the internet to London. The tiny actuators in the glove vibrate and press against the doctor's own fingertips, perfectly replicating the signal from thousands of miles away.
So the doctor in London can actually feel the patient's slippery pearls rolling under her own fingers.
She feels the pearls. She feels the wiry tension of stress. She feels the knotted rhythm of anxiety. Physically, from 6,000 miles away.
That changes everything. That completely solves the telemedicine gap. Because right now, telemedicine is just video chat. You can look, you can listen, but you can't touch.
This is the true digitization of touch. It allows the intuitive, irreplaceable skill of the master, the Dr. Zangs of the world, to be scaled globally.
The outline also mentions seeing the sound, ultrasound pulse imaging.
This is another approach where we stop relying on touch altogether, human or robotic, and we just look. There's new ultrasound technology that can visualize the artery while vibrating in real time. You can literally see the stiffness on a screen. You can see the wiry tension as a color map.
And what about radar sensing?
M-Wave radar. This is totally contactless. It's a small device that can sit on a table and read your pulse from across the room by bouncing millimeter waves off your skin.
No touch means no white coat anxiety.
None whatsoever. The patient doesn't even have to know they're being scanned. You get the purest, most natural reading of their chi in its resting state.
This brings us back full circle to the ultimate confrontation, to the master's final interrogation. Because Dr. Zang isn't going down without a fight.
And he shouldn't. He's asking the questions that the math can't answer yet.
He talks about the spirit, or the Shen, in the pulse.
And he asks about the root. This is a profound concept. In TCM, if a pulse is slow, but you can feel it strongly and deeply at the chur position, the kidney position, it is said to be rooted.
What does that mean, rooted?
It means the patient has life force remaining. They have reserves in their battery. No matter how sick they seem on the surface, they will likely survive.
But if the pulse is rootless,
if it's floating up at the surface, if it feels fast and empty and you can't feel anything down at the deep level, it's like a flame flickering just before it goes out. Dr. Zhang says it means the chi is separating from the body. So his ultimate question to Neo is, can your sensor predict death by feeling the root?
Can it? I mean, can a machine do that?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? A sensor can predict organ failure. It can predict cardiac arrest with high accuracy. But can it predict the separation of spirit from the body? We're at a philosophical boundary there.
And then there's the final application they talk about, emotional haptics.
This is where it gets really personal for all of us, for the listener.
We talked about the wiry pulse being a sign of stress. Imagine a wristband that knows you are stressed before you consciously know you're stressed.
Your brain is incredible at denial. I'm fine. I'm just busy. Everything's under control. But your blood doesn't lie. Your arteries are physically tightening. Your C2 harmonic is disappearing.
So your watch just gives you a little buzz and a notification that says, hey, you're wiry right now. Maybe take 5 deep breaths.
It creates a biological feedback loop for emotional regulation. It's an objective external monitor for your subjective internal state.
It's like having a tiny Dr. Zang on your wrist 24/7 telling you to calm down.
Exactly.
So after all this, what does this all mean? We've gone from poor Alex, the nervous intern just trying to find the chirp position, to haptic gloves transmitting heartbeats across the entire planet.
I think we're seeing a great convergence. For centuries, we had the art, this world of pattern recognition, intuition, poetry. Then we had the science, the world of metrics, anatomy, and physics.
And usually those two worlds just fight each other.
They're usually at war. But here, they're actually proving each other right. The AI is validating the ancient patterns. It turns out Li Shizhen was a data scientist 500 years ahead of his time. He saw the patterns, he just didn't have a computer to process them at scale.
And for someone listening to this, why should they care about this whole analysis? What's the takeaway?
Because this has the potential to shift the entire paradigm of medicine. Right now, we mostly go to the doctor when we are sick, when the engine is already smoking.
Symptom-based medicine, reactive.
But pulse diagnosis is all about the waveform. It's about detecting that subtle shift, that wiry tension, months or years before your blood pressure is high enough to be diagnosed with hypertension. It's checking the oil pressure so the engine never blows up in the first place.
It's truly preventative. It's proactive.
It's personal. It's treating the river, not just the pipe.
I love that. Treat the river. You know, before we wrap up, I have one last thought. It's been sticking with me since I read that strange comment about the ghosts Dr. Zang mentioned. And then thinking about that haptic glove.
Go on.
If we can record a pulse perfectly, I mean, capture the full texture, the rhythm, the force, the chi, and if we can then replay that signal through a haptic glove so another person can feel it.
I think I see where you're going with this.
Could we record the pulse of a loved one? And then years after they've passed away, put on that glove and hold their hand and literally feel their specific, unique heartbeat against our palm one more time.
That's a hauntingly beautiful thought.
And if Dr. Zang is even a little bit right, if the pulse really does contain the Shen, the spirit,
Then what exactly are we preserving in that digital recording? Are we just replaying a hydraulic event? Or are we capturing a ghost in the machine?
something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for exploring all this with us.
Always a pleasure. Keep feeling the flow.
See you next time.